the first session. Yeah, the first study session for our Power BI study group, and we kickstarted our Women Who Code in KL Cloud Skills Challenge. And then I think we were given some homework as well for last week that we had to complete before today. So it was 2 modules. I think most of us here have already completed. And actually later in the session today, we'll also have Lily to share with us some of her learning along this journey. And then the third thing that I put down, okay, last Saturday, we also set up a Telegram group. So I'm not sure if someone already put the link in the chat, but if anyone can put that down, then for those who are not in yet, please feel free to join. That's where we will use as our main channel to communicate for anything related to this study group. All right. Okay, now let me really try to share my screen. So I think I mentioned last week that I'm not very familiar with Zoom because I don't really use it for work, but if it doesn't work, I can just do it verbally as well. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I prepared a short and fun quiz, just hopefully can refresh our knowledge, because I know like some of you have completed the modules like a long time ago, or if I just feel like this could be a good revision. So before we start the quiz, there's this nice fun question about how you're feeling at this stage of your learning journey. So if you can go to www.menti.com and use this code, and you should be able to like input your answer to this question. Yay, we got our first answer. Is anyone having any trouble with menti.com?
Oh, so far so good.
Sounds good. I like that we have teamwork. Yeah, for those of you who are not already in our Telegram team chat, so we have gotten quite a few questions in the chat and people have been really active in helping each other. So I think that's where the teamwork comes from. Supported. Awesome. Yeah, so we have 13 people on Menti right now. But if you're having any trouble, just shout it out. All right, seems very positive overall. I see one that says challenge, but challenge is a good thing, I think. All right, anyone needs more time to get on menti.com before we start the quiz? By the way, I don't seem to be able to see the chat. Sorry, Zoom newbie here. But yeah, if there's anything, maybe Jessica, you can just shout out and let me know if I should pause. Thank you. All right.
None so far.
Yep, sounds good. Then, yep. Is everyone ready for the quiz? Let's go. Okay, 5 players and counting.
Is this like where you test whether we studied or not?
Yeah. There's gonna be material from the first 2 modules, so. Okay, 13. Do we need more time? Anyone? Nope. Going once, twice. Okay, let's start. First question. So these people, they create algorithms, they build predictive models and perform advanced analytics to extract value from data. This is the role description of A. A data scientist. I see most of us here got it right. Yay. Very easy, right? Next one. So this kind of analytics helps answer questions about why events happened in the past. Is it descriptive or diagnostic, predictive or prescriptive analytics? Yay, 13 people got it right. And by the way, if you have not started on the modules, like don't be intimidated. All of these answers you can find in like the first or second activity of the first module. Question 3. In Power BI, a towel is 4 long answers. You have to pick one. Yep, 11 people got it right. I think at this point, it's safe to say everyone did the homework. Last question, I think. What can you do to improve performance when you're getting data in Power BI? Once again, most people got it right. So that's it, our very short quiz of this morning. And I can see that Ming is our lead on the leaderboard. Congrats. By the way, like at any point of this session, please feel free to like unmute so I don't feel like I'm talking alone. And yeah, I'm scared that maybe I'm on mute or something like I did in the beginning of the session. All right. Okay, yeah, so like I said, for today's session, the quiz was just to like get us warm up a little bit. And then after this, I'm gonna also pass the floor to Lily to share more on her thoughts and just her learning, embarking this learning path. And then after that, we'll have Daphne to also share something. But before I pass the floor to Lily, I thought I would just share a little bit of my thoughts or tips on learning Power BI or actually just like any technical skills. But yeah, like I said, feel free to ask any question or say if you guys agree or not. So the first tip and the biggest tip that I have is just to practice, practice, practice. So if I could share a little bit of my own experience. So actually I have taken a Power BI course provided by my company, but it was like a 1 full day crash course kind of Power BI training. And then I have actually built like a few simple dashboards, so mostly using Excel, not really SQL Server. And that was in my previous role. And then early this year, I kind of switched role. And then in my current role now, I don't really use Power BI as like the creator anymore, more just like a user. So when I started this learning path, I kind of discovered that I forgot a lot of the things that I learned in that 1-day training. And then there's also a lot more to discover. And yeah, I think that just kind of highlights how it's super important that you practice. And if you don't use it in your day job, maybe like you can start some personal projects just to like keep the knowledge fresh in your mind. And my second tip is to show your work. So this is kind of related to the first tip. So as you like start practicing, just make sure that you kind of like organize all of your personal projects or work. So be it a Power BI dashboard or like a website that you build. So you can have all of them like at one place as your portfolio. And it's gonna be very handy when you're applying for a new tech job. So you don't have to like start from scratch. And you have like, especially if you're coming from a non like data science background, then it's going to be very helpful to show your future employees that you're capable of doing all these things. And yeah, my last tip is to reach out for help. And I believe that's why everyone is here today. And yeah, I think it's really nice that like we have people from different background here, like no matter what your experience with Power BI is, and everyone is just here to learn and support each other. And we also have that Telegram group that we can always reach out to each other if you have any problems or just like need tips in terms of studying. So yeah, that was my sharing. Do we have any question at this point?
So far, so good. Thanks for sharing tricks.
All right, thank you. And now maybe I'll just pass the floor to Lily. Do you want to take over the screen?
We're bad at multitasking. But so this is just going to be like a high-level summary of the two modules as a quick recap for myself and also I guess everyone else. But feel free to like jump in if you think that like the presentation lacks certain like learning points that you've also learned, because I think that's quite good to equip in. A bit of background, I am in reporting, the reporting side of a business, financial reporting. So we deal with graphics and whatnot, but also part of my work involves like ensuring that what we're kind of like checking the data. And the process usually takes like 3, 4, 5 days. And then when it comes to year end, it's also another horrible nightmare where it can take up to 2 months before we can get the account signed off. And I think the heart of it goes to how data is being managed. And I guess that's also why I came about to deciding to jump on this course. And then Pauline, who's joined us this week, she introduced it, the workshop to me, and I thought, great. So I look at data analytics as just like telling a very, very good story. And there are many ways to tell stories. And I think that was basically covered in the quiz just now. And the first level I see as kind of like very straightforward. So that's descriptive, where it's purely summarizing your historical databases. And then diagnostic kind of digs into looking into the causes of why these historical events happening. So you do a bit more analysis there, historic compared to descriptive. And then the next level is to be basically using predictive analytics, which is a bit more interesting because then you look at not just the trends based on historical events, but also you assess the likelihood of certain things happening. And then there's prescriptive, where you take this kind of predictive analytical element and then inform business what they should be doing based on like all these like probabilities of certain things happening. And then kind of the highest level is your cognitive analytics, which is essentially what I think a lot of us might have heard of, which is essentially like sort of machine learning, having like an like continuous loop of information feeding back into the system so that you're not stuck at one point of time when you're performing your analytics. And also it draws on unstructured data sources, which is quite interesting to my lack of exposure, because what I'm always dealing with is like a finite amount of information stuck to a certain point of time. So there's a lot of limitation if you're stuck within the descriptive and diagnostic kind of reporting or analytics. But Power BI basically enables all of this to happen, which is very exciting. So we go to the role of data. I really like these icons. So you have your data engineers and database administrators. I lump this a bit differently compared to how it was presented in the model, because I look at data as an environment. And I think that was why I placed these two roles on top. I look at engineers, people who basically set up, build the platforms, data platforms and environments, and database administrators are people who kind of safeguard the data environment as kind of key roles to ensuring the database is, in a certain place where you can actually start performing credible analytics. So one of my bosses likes to say, rubbish in, rubbish out. So it's very important to ensure that what you're putting into the system in the first place is good data or valuable data. But you have all this information, but if you're not processing it, also it's no use. So you have people who basically into roles like data scientists, business analysts, data analysts. Business and data analysts are not necessarily mutually exclusive, but the core difference, I guess, is business analysts would be basically, for example, I look at my role sort of quasi-business analyst because I sit closer to the business/reporting side, whereas I think data analysts, it's very strange because I think a lot of organizations still conventionally structure their roles as, IT as a single kind of department, whereas actually as we approach, I guess, the new era of information, actually everyone has to be quite savvy and needs to know how to manage data, and you need to know how to process data as well. Then we're going to the heart of things, which is what Power BI is. And I think it was quite exciting to know that you have not just like one interface, you've got like a very collaborative environment. You have the Power BI desktop, which is where you start off your creating your reports. And then you have Power BI service where you start sharing it across to various individuals who can help you manage that reports. But it's sort of like stuck to you still being the owner, I guess, in a way. And then you've got Power BI mobile, which is something I've not actually seen personally, but the idea of it sounds quite fun because it then really like makes information very consumable and interactive at the same time. So the idea is you can draw and import all your information through Power Query into Power BI desktop. Power Query is a beast in itself, and admittedly, like one thing I'm learning is that there's an infinite amount of kind of functions within Microsoft and its various applications, and that's I guess one of my key takeaways as well. So once you import information into a report, you've created your beautiful visuals, you can publish the report, and that kind of goes into the cloud, which is your Power BI service. Where users on the dashboard can also create new visuals, and then you essentially bring it to consumable interactive insights through your Power BI mobile. Then kind of summarizing the key building blocks of Power BI, you've got your data sets, and then you've got your visuals. Many visuals builds a report, many report pages builds into your dashboard, and a single visual on your dashboard is basically a tile, like what Trix texted us on just now. Okay, then this gets a bit technical because it really goes into the function of Power BI. And I was wondering how I wanted to summarize my learning points from this particular module. And I thought, okay, I'll just like touch high level, then I I will share like resources where I've actually sort of used or like am still using to understand further how to really leverage on the multi-functions when it comes to just loading data into Power BI. And so you can load things from flat files. That's your basically very kind of straightforward information. You've got relational databases, non-SQL databases, online services, and Azure and analytics. A lot of information. Basically, do you know how to summarize this? But it's just basically the definitions of what these various source files are. And then we've got, so once you get your data, then the question is like, how do you store your data? And there's basically three modes, I guess. One is to import, which is your default mode of storing your information or your data in Power BI. The upside is that it's the most straightforward way, therefore the default way. But the downside is it requires manual refresh. So ideally, once you're working off like a kind of a fixed structure in terms of information, you can look into direct query. Direct query is something I've not learned personally yet, but quite curious to know. So direct query is where you actually link up with like live information, and then dual is basically a marriage of both storage modes. And then kind of zooming into kind of highlighting performance issues. Talking about query folding.
Storage mode.
Sorry?
I have a question regarding the select storage mode actually. So I'm really wondering,
Okay, yeah.
is there a way like we can automatically trigger for it to refresh every 3 hours or something like that? Anyone in the group knows? Or you also?
Hi. Yes, you can. It depends on the mode that you put in actually. So like what Lily has put in, right? If it's import, correct me if I'm wrong on the floor one. I'm not quite sure because I forgot how I set up my storage in the company already. If you are using the import one, right, the refresh has to be manually done because you have a copy of the data set in your Power BI local, right? So you have to refresh that manually. But if you are using direct query, you can for that portion you can actually schedule it in the Power BI, the console on the website itself. Correct me if I'm wrong, Flo, if I say it wrongly. Not sure if it's correct.
Yeah, Brenda, can I add some point here? Yeah, I think actually I agree with what you say. So normally there is a Power BI service. So if you are using Power BI desktop, then you have to manually refresh. But if you are having as from what I know is, if you are having subscribed the Power BI service, so in there actually you can set up a Power BI gateway where they will have auto refresh your data. So maybe if you have the service subscribe, you have the pro license, then actually it's doable. Yeah.
Yeah.
So direct query needs pro license?
No. Okay, it's different from the storage mode. Oh yeah, I mean you pointed it out, right? In that sense, I can also import the data and schedule it, right? I mean, if I have the pro license. Yeah, right. Yeah. So for Power BI, right, they have few license lah. One is the basic one, pro, and the enterprise level, if I didn't mistaken. Oh, sorry, it's only basic and pro.
And
basic
premium.
one is and premium. Oh,
Yeah.
3. Sorry.
Yeah.
So basically, yeah. Do you want to do the sharing, Ming? Yeah, just share about the license lah.
Oh, okay. Actually, if we go back like the Lily screen, previous slide, so there is a treating like Power BI desktop, Power BI. I think this is a very good picture where Lily have on top, right? There's a Power BI desktop, a Power BI service, and Power BI mobile, right? So Power BI desktop is the normal where it's a free user license. But if you want to have a Power BI service where you publish to a web, then you need a Power BI Pro license. And there actually you can set up a auto data refresh. So you can set every hour, every 3 hours, or every month to do that. And then if you want to escalate to use a Power BI mobile, then you need to purchase a Power BI premium. Then that actually you can push it to the mobile. And also for the Power BI service, actually The pro license have a limit because it's only for the people who also have the same license to view your dashboard. So if you want to publish to someone who don't have the pro license, then you also need to purchase the premium license. Then only you can, to everyone, they can see your dashboard on link.
I think that's a bit, I'm not sure whether it's correct or not, but my experience is I'm having a pro license, but I can publish the report to web. So publish report,
Yes.
right? There are two modes. Like one mode is published to web and another mode is just published to your workspace. So like what Ming said, right? The publish to workspace will allow your report to be viewed and shared among the pro users, meaning users who have the pro license. But if you publish it to website, meaning that anyone with the with the link will be able to see it, and that will also means that your security, the data security portion has been compromised. So it's totally up to you on how you want to set the boundary there. But if you are a basic, if I didn't mistaken, if you are a free license user, you can publish to website. You can't publish to your workspace. And like what Ming say, if you are a free license user, you are not able to use the Power BI services, as in like you can't schedule the refresh. You have to manually go into the desktop and then click refresh on your dashboard. There's a button there if you notice, right? And if you are a pro license user, like what Ming say, you have to set up a gateway where the gateway can be an on-prem gateway or a cloud gateway depending on your setup, and then from there you will build a connection where you can schedule a refresh there.
It's clear.
But the license are pretty much confusing. I think I tried Google online on the differences. They didn't really tell the differences as well. So you may want to check it out more on the website lah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think well, to chip in, because I was talking to a friend about this who uses Power BI definitely more extensive than me, because I'm just dabbling in learning how to do this. Whereas he's at the Power BI service, and from what I understand, his colleague has actually built the report, but now he's sort of helping to manage it, but he doesn't manage it on the Power BI kind of platform, Power BI desktop platform. He actually accesses and refreshes it through the Power BI service. I don't know what is his license. I can check with him and then kind of share later on in the group as a follow-up to this, I suppose. Yeah. Anything else? Shall I quickly zoom past? Sorry, I just have to disclose, Jess, you're right. This turned out to be 5 slides instead of 3. I overestimated and under-delivered, so okay, sorry. Let's go back to here. So and then you I think the idea of Power BI is integrating like a lot of information and trying to use it as accessible and as efficiently as possible. But the problem is, again, rubbish in, rubbish out. So then if you're not actually understanding your data structures, which is something I'll touch on lightly later, and if you're not like knowing what's going inside, essentially what happens is you've got like a very chunky machine, like very chunky kind of data set that you're trying to work from, and that actually slows down Power BI, and it's not like really optimizing the use of the service. So you have essentially query folding, which is quite interesting. This is what I heard. This analogy I quite like. Query folding is essentially like you have a big sheet of paper. Query folding is a capability within Power Query, which then kind of folds your information. And then what you essentially have is like post transformation is you only work with the information to the extent it's folded. So you only look at the let's just say you've got a piece of paper, which is your data set is like an A4 paper. Then you fold it once, twice, then you have the A5. And so you're dealing with a smaller set of information. So it just means the mechanism of your later stages, like when you want to visualize things, it's so much faster, because we're not talking about like 10 lines here. We're probably talking about, thousands and thousands of lines. Yeah, so that's one of the things that users can do. And then there's query diagnostics, which is basically a function within Power Query, which does that. kind of like diagnostics for your data and kind of shortlist, what are the issues within your data set. And there are other kind of like shortlisted tips within the Microsoft Learning platform, which kind of like is quite good to bookmark, which is why I also placed it here, because I plan to share this PowerPoint later in the group if anybody finds it useful, especially when studying for an exam. But I think one key practical thing that I took away was, this again was looking at another channel. It was the idea of like, you want to reduce the number of columns in the data set. So that's that is basically one of the key things you can do to manage what is going into eventually into Power BI. Some of the columns, you know for certain, information that you don't need in processing your data later on. So you can actually, within Power Query, delete those columns when you're actually cleaning your data, which is something we'll talk about later. And also quite useful to know, and this is one thing I've done a few times. I actually went back to the learning course. There's actually like a more, how to say, usually when you're learning on the Microsoft Learning, it's kind of like packaged modules. So it's like one set. But there's actually, within the learning environment, there's actually like an indexing. So it's where you access all the content, but it's within the same page. So it's much faster to do like control find as well. Yeah, there are certain data import issues. Again, if you're not understanding what's going in, there'll be like all these kind of issues. And also you've got, let's just say you're not working on a flat file and you're looking like on a query, or like the file gets the source file, depending on how you upload the data, how the data is stored within Power BI. Sometimes the query will time out and things like that. Yeah, so these are like, I guess, key import issues. Just running through, okay. Yeah, so the slightly more exciting part, this is when you start building your database. I flipped it again through the learning module. I thought it's quite important to know about your data structure before you work on your data itself. So this is sort of, the screen here is general insight into how you manage the relationships in Power BI. And so basically, when you're examining data structures, what you're doing is you're understanding the data. And one thing that was quite interesting was the way determined it was determining anomalies and then examining and developing underlying data structures and querying data statistics. So you want to basically find your outliers, because that might potentially skew, I guess. This is my interpretation of it. Don't feel free to jump in again and correct me. But it's when you understand what are the outliers or like things which don't fit into your data structure picture. For example, if you're loading like file information from various files and you've got like repeated header lines, these are your anomalies because they don't really fit into what is it supposed to be in your data set. Then you can like clean your data and remove those rows basically. And then, yeah, and then once you have your data set available, then you determine the relationships, how each data set is supposed to speak to each other. And one core concept that I've been going back to the last few weeks is this issue of this idea of cardinality. So it's the direction of your relationships, because you're basically going to be having lots of data, I don't know how to term it, but I think they call it like data tables and then fact tables as well. So you need to know which way it's supposed to go, because the most direct one would be your one-to-one, where you're just dealing with unit figures. But in some instances, you're going to deal with like many-to-one, one-to-many. So then you need to know which is your fact table, which is your data table. And then you've got, usually what happens is you've got like a many-to-one, many-to-many directional relationship, in which case it's not really encouraged to I guess like maintain the data in that format, simply because it would lead to an issue of ambiguity. So basically, what happens is that this is my understanding as well, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, you have basically, it's like a cross-referencing that eventually leads to an error, because I guess the system is not able to identify what is the key and then what is the information that's supposed to match up to the key. And then basically one way to get around it is to use bi-directional cross-filtering. Yeah, so once you know your data structures and you're cleaning your data, you can actually clean your data by checking for all these anomalies and like also looking at your data statistics in Power Query, which is quite interesting. But this goes all back to like the idea of cleaning your data first before you put it into Power BI. Yeah, so there's some of the fun steps that you need to, that the module kind of takes us into, for example, shaping data. The little screen on the right side is basically talking about how you, or like what is the relevant ribbon, I suppose, that you should be seeing when you're cleaning your data. Thought I should put it there. Also nice pictures. And then you evaluate and change your data types. And then basically, there are like 3 main data types that will be in your data set: your numbers, your dates, and your text. A typo, sorry, just noted typo there. And I think one thing I mentioned just now was the idea of like when you loading transforming your data, basically you can have like many sources. So you have basically, for example, if you're dealing with the same set of data across different time periods, so every single month you're dealing with the same set of data, and you want to collate this data because you're looking at it as a cumulative basis, then you can also use Power Query to help you to do that, which I thought was quite useful to know. Yeah, these are some of the key highlights within the learning that basically summarizes the kind of like things to know when you're actually dealing with your data set. Always name your query. I don't know if you guys have done Photoshop. I used to work on Photoshop. If you don't label your layers, it's a pain. So same thing, once you are like sort of pulling your data, you're having all these different strings, basically, these different connections, like name them because it's really useful also when you're passing on to other people to use. Then replace values. Replace null with 0, which helps with the calculations eventually later on, and then potentially removing duplicates if they're not, if they skew your data, basically. And then something I wanted to slot in, which was the idea of modifying M codes when shaping data. So that one is going back to point number 1, which is how you can actually sometimes when you're loading, this is my understanding as well, when you're loading my learning, I guess, when you're loading data from a particular source, what happens is you might not, when you're pulling the information, it's in M code. So then you can actually edit that. And so there's like a little function button, advanced editor, which helps you modify your query so that you can enhance what you're pulling out from the data source. And I think my final learning point was it's very important to practice. Yeah, very important to practice. It's quite hard to try to explain everything in words, I suppose, until you become, it's something like Excel. Conceptually, it's really difficult to explain, but I think once you do it quite a few times, then it becomes quite intuitive. Yeah, and then you also can understand further all the different functions within the platform. Yeah, so hopefully that wasn't too boring. And just kind of like really high level, kind of trying to hit everything within, but not going too much into the details.
That was
I
great,
guess
Lily.
the final learning was there's a lot of sources out there. There's a lot of information out there. It's just like trying to pull it together. Yeah. Okay, I think
Thanks,
I'm done.
Lily, for sharing. Do we have any questions for her or to the floor in general?
Actually, I do have a question. But I'm not sure whether Lily can answer it. Can you give me an example of a many-to-many relationship? Because I can't really imagine it even when I was doing this module. Like, why would you use it?
Maybe I can try chip in.
Yeah, go ahead.
If you don't mind. For the example, from what I understand, I'm not a very, I'm still learning on the database relationship, but from what I know is like, if we have a many-to-many relationship, usually we have to resolve that relationship because the best practice is always model one-to-many or one-to-many relationship. So normally, if there is a many-to-many relationship in your data model, the first step we need to do is we need to convert that to one-to-many or one-to-one or many-to-one. Then meaning that we need to add a relationship, additional relationship in between the many-to-many to resolve this first. Then only we can successfully have the complete data modeling. Because else the many-to-many is not as like what Lily's screen here also share there's a wording there, right? Not recommended, because it's actually is confusing and it's not easy for us to visualize this kind of a relationship. So we have to convert that to one-to-many or one-to-one first. Yeah, that's what I understand. Maybe others can chip in for additional comment.
I was just doing a quick Google and a sample of many-to-many relationship they gave a student and class. So one student can go into multiple classes and one class can have multiple students. So this one can be a sample case for many-to-many. I think if Google means got a few other cases like books and authors. One book can be written by many authors. One author can be writing many books. So in business case, there could be something like this as well, which can be used. But like just now, she mentioned, it's not really a good idea based on Power BI's comment. Does it answer your question, Trix?
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, the question was from Jessica, but I think, yeah, thanks for the explanation.
Sorry.
I think we can, yeah, imagine definitely naturally there would be a lot of like many-to-many kind of relationship in data, but yeah, probably it's better it probably means that we can still like dive a bit deeper to organize it to make it one-to-many instead, like what Ming said.
Yeah, it's been a while since I did like the lab actually for this module, but I did think that they do actually run us through one example of many-to-many and then kind of like how to get around it by then not just working on many basis, but you structure your data so much so that like I think was it Ming earlier that mentioned then the workaround is to try to actually make it into many-to-one, one-to-many, or one-to-one relationship, whether it's yeah. So I think it's in the, not mistaken, in the lab where they do run across how do we resolve that. Yeah.
Yeah, great question. Any other questions? Anything in the chat? Yeah, I see there's a question from Yuki that says she couldn't find a link to do the hands-on. So when I did it, it was all quite smooth. So when I went into the lab, there was a button for me to click to launch lab. And then I just followed the step by step, and everything went okay for me. So I'm not sure if anyone else had the same problem. And if you don't mind sharing, anyone face any problems with their lab, and how did you resolve the issues?
Maybe I can do the demo as part of the GitHub one that I want to show.
Yep, sounds good. Then maybe if we don't have any more questions, we can pass the floor to Daphne for the sharing.
Yeah, if you have more questions, you can always type in the chat. Yeah. Okay, let me try to share my screen. Apologize because I am not totally prepared. Okay. So I'm sharing my browser here. And the module looks something like this, right? Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Always get a little bit lost on this page. Okay, so I think the lab module is in another one, right?
Yeah, the second learning path.
Mm-hmm. This one?
Yep.
And this one? Is this the
You
one
go to, yeah,
Yuki
go to lab, yeah.
you're having issue with? So you see this one? It's loading. Okay, so make sure that your browser supports the loading of this square, rectangle. If it doesn't, then maybe you can check your settings. Maybe you need to enable JavaScript or something, or use a different browser, and then click on the Launch Lab. So it will take a while. I'm not sure if it will show if I'm sharing my screen like this.
Module 2, right, lady?
Yes, module 2, get data in Power BI, one of the labs in unit 10.
Right, or unit 10 of 12, right? Okay.
Is this the one you're having trouble with?
Yeah. So I remember during the first session there will be a lab. That's what I remember. So I couldn't find
the first session. I mean, the first module doesn't have it. The second module has it.
Okay.
So have you reached this part?
I am in. Yeah. Okay.
Get data in Power BI.
Get data in Power BI, the second module, right? Yeah.
Yes, second module.
Yeah. I think I'm in only at unit 10 out of 12, the lab will start it. So from unit 1 to 10, it's basically just
study.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, no problem. So for example, if you look at the summary, right? These are all study modules, and then this one has a lab in front. This one has the lab.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. So I wanted to demo today is launching this in your own desktop environment with GitHub. So this one, I think last week, Jessica showed you how to launch the lab, but if you still have question, I can show this to you as well. It takes a while, actually. Let me just click on this. It takes a while to launch. It launches the lab in a separate browser. And from that browser, okay, you have to click again when it says Start Lab. On this browser, it will load the environment, virtual environment for you remotely, where you can access Power BI. So this one takes about, I don't know, today is very fast, but usually 3 minutes to 5 minutes for me, yeah. But there's also another option if you want to download the material in GitHub. Okay, now that is very fast today, unusual. There are instructions here before you start. Make sure you read carefully all these instruction, and then click on the blue button to download the lab. onto your D drive. Okay, click, and then this one takes several minutes as well. So once it's done, it will let you know that it's a green button says successful, and then you can check in your D drive inside the environment for the lab file. So now that it's still downloading, you can't see it yet. So D drive is here. So it's empty. So when this is done, you will have the files here, and then you can launch Power BI here.
Right.
Okay. So another way is actually, if you don't like launching the app or you have problem accessing this lab, and you already have Power BI downloaded in your own PC, okay, like me, I have a Power BI already installed. It's struggling a little bit. What you can do is you go to GitHub. Okay, can we see everything? Which I can send you the link later. Go to the GitHub. You can also search for DA100 GitHub, right? This is the the learning module code. And then here you can download the file either by git clone or just directly download. Okay, so sometimes I'm lazy, I just do the download zip. It will be downloaded to my computer as a zip file. Okay, it is downloading here. It takes a while. And it is downloaded. I get a zip folder here in my download. I extract it, extract all, and then choose the folder that you want to put in. Usually I have, for example, D repo or D drive, DA100. It's up to you, right? So just extract it. You will have all the files in your local machine. Having long file names may cause a problem as well. So try to make the folder names smaller, like DA100 or Power BI. Okay, taking a while. Anyway, let me check on the virtual lab. Many screens. You can see this one successfully download, and you can see the folder in the D drive in the virtual environment. Okay. Oh, must be a big file. It's taking a while. Any questions so far? While we wait.
I'm just wondering how many Mac users are there in this study group?
Any Mac users? Well, it usually doesn't take so long, but I think I'm streaming on Zoom, so it's struggling a little bit. Let me see. 7, 6, 8, but some of these have already been extracted. I'm just showing you in advance. Yeah, it's still not done, still working. And then once the files are extracted, you can use your own Power BI and open the solution file in the starter. So where do you find the files? You can go back to the lab. It actually tells you here. Okay, you are here. Okay, you are here. And then each lab starts with a PIBX file. And you can follow the instructions how to open the correct file. And it will always ask you to save first a copy so that you have the original file if you want to go back to it. Okay. That's about it actually. Okay, now I remember the first file actually starts with a blank one. So you don't need any pre-files to start. Okay, you just start and then build up the data, and you can load the data from the the first one is SQL Server. The first one is tricky, right? The first one, you have to set up your own SQL Server in your local machine and load the Adventure DataWorks database. So this is one of the default database that comes with SQL Server when you install it. Otherwise, you can also find this database on the internet if you don't have it installed. But yeah, I guess the first one is more difficult to start in your own machine. Any questions so far? It is still extracting.
Kenyang asked how to set up the SQL Server.
First of all, you download it from the internet, install it. Let me see if I can find something.
Yeah, download, install, set up the credential.
So SQL Server comes in first the server and the management studio. So you need both of these. So there should be a lot of online tutorials to show you how to download and install. If you already have Azure, you can use Azure one, but localhost means you have something on the on your own machine. So actually, launching the lab is quite straightforward when your connection is fast. Like today, actually, there's not much issue. I downloaded the Git file much faster than you see on my local computer. And actually, I can show you here also inside the DA100, when you extract the Git file, you have all these as well in your local machine. So you go to the labs and you find the correct lab that you want to start in. Let's say the first one, it already has a solution. It doesn't have a starter. But let's say the second one, it has a starter folder. So let's say you are continuing in a new session from your previous one, which it only lasts for like 4 hours, right? Let's say the next day you start on the second lab, you go to the starter and you open up this one. Open up this one and then you save this one in your solution folder, and then you can start with the instruction for this lab. Okay, the instructions are here. So follow, or you can follow on the website also, same thing. Okay, usually I just dismiss that. So before you even start on the lab, you go save as, apply. You can apply or apply later. I would say apply. And save it in your DA100, my solution. Just save here. And then you can start on the next step. Okay, so it's easier on the lab because you already have the connection to the Adventure database here. Okay, that's my demo for today. So this is fully extracted now. So I'll show you the files look similar to the one in the lab. So you go to labs, go to the correct module that you are doing. Let's say I'm doing 2. And then there's the starter folder. Launch this one in your local machine. and then save it in your My Solutions folder to start. Great. If we have questions. No, no questions.
Yeah, none for now.
I'll hand it over to Trix.
It's so good.
Thanks, Stephanie, for the sharing. So do we have any other questions? I think that was very clear, but if we have any questions, just shout it out. Anything in the chat? Nothing. Okay, then I think we're done with our scheduled activities for today. So I think now maybe I'll just like open the floor for anyone to ask just any questions, or if you want to start any discussion on any topics, or if you just want to chat. But yeah, if not, I think we can also end a bit early.
So just one aspect, I'm curious how much time do you all like dedicate to get the Power BI everything?
Sorry, I can't hear you very clearly, Pauline.
And so basically it's just like the amount of time that you allocate to get up to pace with everyone. So like how do you, or how long do you spend on it?
Yeah, I can share that. So the entire data analytics module that we are doing in this study group takes about 17 to 18 hours. I would say 17 to 20 hours. It really depends on your pace of study. So if we're finishing the whole course in 4 weeks, I would recommend 4 to 5 hours a day, a week, all right? But can I still share my screen again? I'm so sorry. I'm going to take the screen again. Okay, I just wanted to show you that on each of the module, it tells you how long it takes for each module. Let's say get data in Power BI. It tells you here how long it takes to complete this module. Okay, so you have a rough understanding, you know, how long you should spend. Does that answer your question? Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay. So the next week, we will share, actually we will do the next two, right? We will share in the chat as well, so don't worry. Model data in Power BI, okay? So this one. So we should have completed these two in this week. And next week we will study this one, which will take about 5 hours. Actually, I noticed from our Cloud Skills Challenge, a lot of you have already completed all 16 modules. So seems like we have like very fast learners. But what about those on the call, you know? Do you have trouble completing the first 2 modules, or are you ahead? Maybe you can share your experience.
I just completed 2 yesterday.
Well done. You're one of the fast learners.
No, the first 2, the homework. So I'll follow the homework.
Yeah, same for me, one step at a time, right?
Same here.
Yes.
Yes, so yeah, like I say, it's always confusing navigating this. So you mean when you finish first 2 is this one? So you haven't done the lab yet, right? The lab is in this one.
The first lab, yeah. So
The first
both,
lab is in this.
yeah, both get started
Yeah.
with data analytics and also prepare data.
Sorry, can you,
okay.
meaning that the module will be, I get confused actually. Prepare data for analysis with the lab is module 3 or module 2?
Oh, can I just chip in here? Okay, so I think what you're confused is for last week, you were supposed to do
Yeah.
learning path 1 and 2. So there are actually
Yeah.
4 modules altogether. It's only in
Ah.
learning path 2. So that means that's the third module that you'll be learning. That's when there's a lab.
Oh, so each module have one link has 2 modules inside, right?
Yeah, one learning path has, no, depends. So like the next week's homework, there are 3 modules in the same learning path.
Oh,
So we've already done the first 2 learning paths.
okay, which has total 4 module and the lab is on the 3rd module. Am I right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Actually, yeah, it's a bit confusing. What I can advise is every time when we are referring to the homework, right, it's actually by learning path lah. So I think we are targeting 2 learning path every week. But if you look at the cloud skills challenge page, right, they are not classifying this as a learning path. They are classifying as a module. If I didn't mistaken lah, so I always will go front and forth to check it. But usually when it belongs to the same learning path, right, once you finish one module, they will bring you to another module. So it's kind of like a continuous one. But if you are jumping from a learning path to a learning path, then that's when you have to go back to the cloud skills challenge and search from there. Yeah, which is this one. So they actually classify by module. They don't tell you the learning path and all. So the next week one potentially is 7 module lah, right? In total for learning path 3 and learning path 4, it will be 1, 2, 3. Design a model in Power BI onwards, all the way until I'm not sure which one. In terms of lab wise, I'm also not sure whether in each module will have labs or not. But if they have a labs, right, you will see it in there that you can click launch lab there. So don't worry if you're afraid that you miss it out, because you won't be, because they will ask you to launch lab there one.
Okay, I will try.
Yeah, try it out. Yeah, we have a Telegram group lah. You can just join the group, and if you have any question, you can throw it there. We have a lot of people that's willing to help you.
Okay.
Or you can just go ahead and do all 16.
Yeah, like a lot of people, they have done already.
Oh, actually, it says here 18 hours, 52 minutes. So if you haven't done it already, sign up for this Cloud Skills Challenge. Okay, we already have 51 participants today. I think 2 just joined. And yeah, well done to these few people. They have completed, but
Wow,
many
Brianna.
of us. Yeah,
No,
Brianna.
I'm not there. I'm not at, I'm only 4, you see.
Name is here.
I follow
It's very
the
cute.
homework one.
Yeah, same, follow 4 module.
So
At the very last day, last minute.
So yeah, join this Cloud Skills Challenge, and we can have a little bit of fun. And there's also some prizes at the
Who is
end.
this guys? Carmen, Fung Won, already finished all the module.
Super learners. Anyone on this call? I don't think so. We should invite them to share their learnings, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So yeah, I think before we let everyone go, just wanted to ask if anyone in the audience today would like to lead next week's session, or if anyone wants to do any sharing. I know Lily set the bar too high, but don't feel pressure. Anyone? Remember, we're all just here to learn, right? So we don't expect you to know everything. You can just share any problems that you encountered or anything that you find useful.
And if you are too shy or if you are nervous, we can do co-sharing as well. So if you want to try it out, we'll find somebody to partner with you on the preparing for the sharing. Anybody? So we encourage people to do the sharing because when you share, I think maybe Lily can tell your experience, right? I think when you share, you tend to memorize a bit better, like you can absorb the information a bit better. Am I right, Lily?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's quite interesting because it's a different like skill you engage on. So there's one thing about like, you play it around, then you play around, you follow instruction. That's very easy. Everybody can do that. But then when you're trying to teach someone else, that's like really like engaging on another skill because it's like you need to be a subject matter. You need to have familiarity with the subject matter. Then you also need to work on like, how do I explain it as simple as possible? Yeah. So it's a really for me it was like personally quite a fun challenge I decided to take on. And I do encourage other people to just like share. I think it keeps you in check to make sure that you're also not just like coming on board, just attending class kind of thing, like you're actually preparing for it. Yeah. Very, very good. I can share you I'll share the PowerPoint later in the group. So whoever wants to present next time, you can just use that template. If that's something you want to do. You don't have to do like a summary like me. I just thought like, okay, I'll just want to look at the learning module. You can do other things like, I was thinking, I was dabbling between the idea of like trying to run through like gate data because that's the crux of basically, I guess, learning skill-wise. But I thought, okay, this is too hard. I want to do easier way, which is summarizing what was in the module. So yeah. I highly encourage people to share. Is the reason why we are in a group as well, because it's like sharing, collaboration.
And I think like Lily said, you can share it like in whichever format that you're comfortable with. You don't necessarily have to prepare slides. Maybe you want to like build something together like live, then we can see, or whichever that you feel more comfortable with.
Anybody wants to raise their hand?
I think I'll take over, but I need help in terms of which module is supposed to be presented next.
Yay, you have
Awesome.
a taker.
Thank you.
And I
Right.
need help in terms of which module because I didn't follow the flow actually.
I think Jessica put it in the chat, right?
Brianna.
This week's, sorry, for this week's
All
homework.
right, the next week's homework. There was learning path 3. So I think I've seen that you already completed 6 modules, so you may need to do 1 more to do this part. So basically, it's the 3 modules for that we have to cover next week is design and data model in Power BI, introduce creating measures using DAX, which is their own special language, and optimize the model for performance in Power BI.
Clear.
Okay, and does anyone want to help co-present with Aishwarya? Is it? Is that how I say your name?
Sorry, you can call me
Is. Okay. Is there anyone who wants to present with Is, like what Trix did? Okay, Trix, you set that bar too high as well.
Yeah, I was just like typing in the chat. So appreciate any feedback on today's session if you like find it fun. Actually, I don't mind like just starting the session again next week, and then I can invite Is to share like what I did today.
Yeah, I thought just want to quip in. I thought the quiz was quite fun. Like, it really got me on my toes. Like, I have to put my thinking hat on. Yeah. So yeah, well done on that.
Thank you. But